Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Class 1A podcast. My name is Andrew Nimsgren. Alongside me, I have James Graham and Dylan Beal to break down everything that happened in this week's episode, which was the 100th episode of the anime. And actually, this is our 101st episode ever of the podcast. Isn't it, Dylan, or are we one or two? I think we're somewhere off. We barely missed the lighting up of it.
Yeah, like technically this is 102, but I think we had like 3 episodes that were non-episodes, so it's close enough.
We're very close.
You know, let's just say it. I mean, yeah, it's just our 100th.
Yeah, this is 100th. Yeah, well, the 100th extravaganza for us and the anime both. It was a very big lore episode. But guys, how did you feel about this? Obviously trying to shift over to a new arc. Not too much of an idea what that's going to be yet, but clearly the joint training arc's done, and now we're doing whatever this episode was.
I mean, I'm a big fan of this. I've talked about this on the show like multiple times, that I like the ebb and flow that they do with arcs of where you have like kind of like serious stuff going on, and then you move into like something easy, you know, not super intense. There's like random jokes all over the place, and that's what this episode was. I like it. It's like a good like breather episode, I would say.
I don't know, man. It's just overshadowed by the fact that I'm still getting sports festival flashbacks like this late. I'm getting episode 100. Episode 100. I'm still getting sports festival flashbacks, and it was Todoroki throwing shade. So like, I don't know, silver lining, I guess.
Which was one of my favorite moments of when Bakugo was just kind of commentating over top of that. Like, you're pretty sharp, but you're still pretty dull at the same time. So a lot of good moments kind of like that, what you were saying, Dylan. Obviously not my favorite episode of the season by far, especially when you just have the last 3 episodes before that, but still a fun episode. It is a lot more lighthearted, which is kind of needed, even though the last couple arcs, episodes weren't necessarily super heavy, but it was still a very good break. What do you got, Dylan?
I have a question for both of you. I have the questions this time, Andrew. What was Mina showing Mineta on the TV?
That's a great question.
I know, when he was strapped down. I don't even know. These old people, like, what's something incredibly boring and that it can't be like just old people talking to each other? Just something blatantly dumb and unhorny.
I think it was like probably like some like fast food restaurants anti-harassment videos.
I was gonna just say like a PSA or something like that. Yeah. Like he was, 100%.
Captain America sitting down in the chair saying, "So you sexually harassed one of your classmates."
Give me that, but it's All Might. Give me All Might sitting down in the chair.
I actually like that so much better. We should just make that happen. All right. Before we jump into the recap, talking about our thoughts, the Plus Ultra, and all that kind of stuff, if you guys do enjoy this or any other My Hero Academia content, we do a ton on the channel. Go over to youtube.com/class1a if you're listening on podcast. Otherwise, if you are watching on YouTube right now and you want to listen on podcast, we're available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Pocket Cast, pretty much wherever you listen, we're going to be available. Leaving a 5-star review over there helps a ton, or subscribing, liking, all that kind of stuff also does a ton on the YouTube channel. And then one last thing of housekeeping is we are actually doing a giveaway for volume 28 of My Hero Academia. I don't even remember the number we're giving away.
Remember the manga. Yeah.
We're giving away the most recent volume. We're giving away 3 copies. So if you go over to our Twitter or Instagram, both Class 1A Pod, you have 3 chances to enter and win the most recent volume of My Hero Academia. No strings attached. Pretty much just have to follow us and interact with the posts, and you have a chance to win. We'll be giving that away next Wednesday, so make sure to do this in the next couple of days if you want a chance to win that.
The only caveat with that is that we're only shipping physical copies to the States.
Yes, but if you are overseas or something like that, if you have a digital platform that we can easily buy you a copy for, we'll still figure it out. Otherwise, we might just have to do it something else. But that's besides the point. Go and enter anyways if you want a chance to win. But with that, let's jump into episode 100 of My Hero Academia, or season 5, episode 12, titled The New Power and All for One. After the recap, it starts off with Deku talking about how awesome Shinso did in their battle against each other, and Vlad announces that there will be one last review, but Shinso is more than likely to be joining the hero course next year, unsure of what class yet. Mineta is offered up as the person to replace Shinso, which is actually a funny point because Dylan Beal is going to scientifically, mathematically, my goodness, be breaking down the person that should actually be replaced by Shinso between Class 1A, Class 1B. That's a video that's going to be coming up this week. He spent a lot of time and research on it. So Mineta may still end up being kicked out of the class, but Mina didn't do the math correct.
Yeah, I
Anything
have
you want to add to
spreadsheets.
that?
I got spreadsheets and stuff. It's perfect. It's flawless. The results will shock you. They won't. They won't shock you. It's probably someone that you're thinking, but they may shock you.
So keep an eye on all of our social media planners or the YouTube channel. That'll be popping up, and we'll be posting all about that later. But it should be a super fun video coming up around this topic. But jumping back to the episode, Monoma goes on about how the next time Class 1B will win, blah, blah, blah. Mentions blank and how Deku's power was, which we'll get a little bit more of explanation on later on. We also get to see Eri for a second, who was still the cutest goddamn thing in this entire show. And then that night, Bakugo is basically trying to kill Deku in an attempt to see if Blackwhip will come out, despite Deku saying, I'm not going to use this quirk anytime at 9 a.m. And at 8 p.m. at night, he's trying to use the quirk again, so he clearly has no self-control. But there is a flashback to the teacher's office where Bakugo, Deku, and All Might are talking. All Might basically knows nothing about the previous holders, despite me thinking last week, like, oh yeah, he's going to know a ton about these people. He knows nothing, and he was not expecting these additional quirks to manifest. Going back to kind of the training, Deku pretty much believes that since his emotion said that he needs to lock the power away for now, it won't come out, but he can kind of work on unlocking and locking the power as it's needed in the future, despite him saying he's not going to use it anytime soon. So I don't know why that'd be important. But back at the dorms again, Class 1A and Class 1B are chilling. Kirishima and Tetsu have a very manly moment, and everyone is talking about the joint training that they just did. Todoroki is a little slow on Deku's 2 quirks concept, but you also see that he reached out to Endeavor to learn Flash Fire, which Endeavor's trying to been reaching out to Shoto, trying to ask him if he's willing to learn it. And then it then does go on to see that it's decided that Shinso will join the hero course by all the teachers, and we learned that Monoma was invited over to work with Eri to see if he could teach Eri her power since he has a copy quirk, but it's also blank for him, pretty much just meaning that he can't stockpile quirks. We'll go more on that later. They were pretty much, Deku gave a little motivational speech to Eri, but it really felt like it was more for him than Eri, so whatever works, Deku, get your feelings out, but at least Eri seemed a little bit excited about it. Todoroki and Bakugo are in a final test for their provisional licenses, and then we see a huge wave rushing through a town. A group of the villains called the Setter Gang are stealing purses and such of the nearby citizens. Bakugo and Todoroki, who just got their licenses, get out of the car with All Might and just kick the shit out of these guys in a pretty cool, about 6-7 minute fight scene that was definitely worth the watch if you guys haven't seen it yet. And then in the preview for next week, we do see that it's going to be the Christmas episode. Christmas in June, I guess. But what do you guys think about the episode? I mean, Dylan, I know you're kind of saying early on, and I guess we got a couple of certain topics, but I thought the fight was great. I thought the funny moments were great. I mean, I don't really have too many complaints about the episode besides wanting more, but that's every single episode.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it overall. I thought it was really good. There was a lot of really funny moments in there. That I just liked. I don't know, like Sue, like kind of like hibernating because it was too cold. I don't know. I just got such a kick out of that. I really like those kind of moments in My Hero. And even though like in the joint training arc there was funny moments, it just like it wasn't overall funny. It was more serious because it was fight. So it's nice to have like a relaxed kind of environment of where it's just like let's just do a bunch of random jokes all over the place.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's needed sometimes because I think the funniest parts for me were like when Bakugo was calling people trash and scum and all that kind of stuff. Like that was the funniest part of the joint training arc for me. But definitely here, the Kirishima Tetsu moment, things kind of like that. Even Bakugo just casually calling Deku scum when talking with All Might, and All Might's like, don't call him that. Like it's just so natural for him. So I thought a lot of the moments were just really fun here. And I guess one problem that you probably picked up on is the whole Blackwhip situation in this episode. And actually in the preview, we see Deku using Blackwhip for a second in the very next episode. So do we just...
I don't know. He's like, I'm not going to use this. I need to wait until I use this, and immediately tries to use it like you said. It's just too funny.
I think James just chalked that up to like a hero, like a main character syndrome or whatever. Is like, oh, like I'm not going to use this anytime soon. And then the second he even thinks about needing it, he starts using it. So, I mean, that's Deku at this point. Do we really expect more from him? Like the second he gets something cool, he just tries to blow his body apart. But I guess the really cool thing is that Shinso's in the second year officially, more or less. There's still details to be figured out and such, but I think we've all kind of been talking about like this. Will he, won't he? You're doing a whole video on who he's replacing, but we all pretty much agreed he deserves to be in there, right? Is there any objections to that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially
I think
go on.
I think he still has like a far way to go as far as like combat prowess and stuff like that. But I think as far as like utility and like decision making and stuff like that, seems to be like pretty on the ball. I like it worries me to know like how effective Shinso would be if he had made it right into the class initially. You know what I mean? I think he would be incredibly effective.
That's really the thing. Like, I hope they do some like side training or something with them, because I mean, sure, you're gonna join in and everyone's expecting him to be a little bit behind, but I mean, I'm expecting year 2 is like mostly a lot of more work studies and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're gonna be out in the field a lot more since you all have your provisional licenses and all that. He doesn't have that. He probably has done any like the really intensive Quirk training or anything kind of like that outside of the little he's done with Aizawa. So hopefully at some point he gets his license and kind of goes through all that. But either way, he's going to be second year, and his Quirk isn't one that needs to be trained as much. It's more about what he can kind of do around it, similar to Aizawa, who uses a binding cloth and have to think about how using it in more of a tactical sense. Because just getting someone to talk to you, maybe eventually he's able to do 2-3 people, would really be the growth of his Quirk, unlike some other Quirks.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and also a good thing to remember is he's joining really soon, actually, because we seen from like, I think it was the preview that it's about Christmas time.
Yep.
So if it's like roughly December, he has like 4 months until it's year 2. So I would assume that they're probably going to put him like on a, listen, you're going to go into hero course. Here's like a super like condensed version of like some of the stuff you missed, ways to catch you up and whatnot. But he's gonna be in like really soon because it's only 4 months.
That's true. I forgot kind of exactly when the academia schedule, goodness, is so much different in Japan than it is in the United States. So I kind of forgot how close that would be. But I guess that was a really cool thing, and I can't wait to kind of see more of Shinso. Obviously, he's a big fan favorite of all 3 of us. We get multiple plus ultras throughout the entire thing. But going on to another character that's definitely been one of our more favorites going on. We saw a lot of Monoma this episode, so even though Class 1B is kind of going back to the side, we saw him talk about his blank. We've seen him trying to teach Eerie things. And Dylan, what do you kind of have about just the stockpiling quirks and just interesting things about that? This was a topic you kind of liked.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting on him talking about how he can't take the quirks that are stockpiling quirks because if he takes the ability to stockpile, but like you need time and stuff to facilitate it or whatnot. I thought that was really interesting because they brought up Fat Gum of where, he can't replicate Fat Gums because his is stockpiling and Eerie's as well as Deku's. I just thought that was like kind of interesting. I want to talk about, I guess, like the Eerie side of it because that's a reveal that her ability is a stockpiling quirk. But what is she stockpiling then?
Yeah, that's just it.
It was something that it said if it takes energy for something else and converts it into something else. So I guess that's still considered stockpiling, but we know that like her actual blood and like cells has something to do with this. So those cells probably build up some kind of energy that she's then able to use. I'm assuming that's kind of how the bullets work. So it's her actual physical structure. It's a quirk that's kind of bled into like her actual body at this point. So something internally, I believe, is stockpiling, which is why the horn gets bigger and smaller. Because as the horn gets bigger, she has that more power kind of stockpiled. So yes, it's a stockpiling quirk, but it's not quite the Fat Gum who has to eat or Deku stores up like whatever energy he kind of has.
So does that mean then like I forget what types of quirks they are, but the ones that make you essentially look like monsters or whatnot, or like insects or like other animals, are those inherently this stockpiling of some sort too? Of like, could he then not take those and like appear like Jack Mantis? If he took Jack Mantis, would he just not appear like Jack Mantis?
No, I think he would. Because we see it with Eerie, he grows the horn. But I guess that's part of the quirk a little bit. So that's a good question because he grows the horn, and even when it's a blank for him, he still got the all for one green sparking around him. One for all, sorry. Green sparking around him. So he still gets the visual side effects of quirks. But I don't know if I guess a really interesting question because he never if he fought against Tokiyami or something kind of like that, it'd be interesting to see. But he never fought against anyone that had that kind of quirk. Yeah. Maybe because there's not an answer.
Yeah,
didn't want to think about it.
Yeah, that's just it. I'd really like to see like what traits get carried over and what don't. So you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, like again, all his stuff is on a timer too, right? So
Well, I think that's why like the stockpiling doesn't work, because in theory, like if he had unlimited time, it would work. It would be fine, but it's a blank because he's taking it and there's no energy when he first takes it. And so like whenever he activates one for all, the sparks go around him because he's using it, but there's just nothing stockpiled.
There's nothing, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing built up. Yeah.
Either way, still really cool.
He's such a there's such a rabbit hole with him you can go down. It's really cool.
His quirk is definitely one of the most interesting ones in the world because it has the most loose rules, kind of. Because they can just make up what's a blank and what's not on the back end and then try to explain their way out of it. Now we kind of know it's stockpiling, but you could kind of consider like anything like, oh, like, yes, your quirk actually doesn't look like you stockpile it, but really it's the stockpiling of iron in your blood. And that's how Tetsu gets hard or something kind of like that. Like, you can kind of explain away anything like that.
Yeah.
So it is super interesting, but Eri coming back in the timeline and trying to train her to use her quirk, obviously, I'm sure is going to have something with it. I don't feel like they'd keep Eri around and like, oh, we want her to learn her quirk. They mentioned her horn is getting bigger, which means she's getting her power back and things such as that. I don't know exactly where that's going to play into it. Obviously, there's always been the fan theories about Miria coming back and things such as that, but I'm glad to see Eri still in the story. I don't think that's going to pay off anytime soon, but I'm glad to keep her in here because I love her. I think she's adorable. I would watch a sitcom of just Aizawa, Mirio, and Eri just like being a little family. I'd watch like 100 episodes of just that alone. So I love that part, but it is interesting to see her still stay in the series.
Yeah, I think it's just like the Stain thing of where we know Stain exists. We haven't seen him since like season like 1 or 2.
Wasn't he locked up right now?
Yeah, he's locked up. But like the thing is,
he
like
still exists. Like, why did he kill him?
It's the
he's locked
right?
up.
Like,
So it's just like one of those things of where like even like All for One, right? It's like we know these characters exist and they're locked up. It's just like, when are they going to come back?
The second that they're not dead, you know they're going to come back. Like they would write him away. Like with Overhaul, he's gone. He doesn't have a quirk anymore. Like he doesn't have arms. So you just assume he's not going to come back because like what is he going to do? Just stare and just try to like manifest something happen? Like no, he's gone. I guess Dylan, you had a mystery topic as well that you just wanted me to direct you to.
Yes, I just want to say this is a big reveal that we got this episode. I don't think anyone caught it. So obviously, the end of the the end credits, has been a build-up. I don't know if you've seen the narrative of what happens during the end credits, but essentially it's every week. They play the ending song. It's fun. We all love it. It's great, and they're getting ready for a party. And I've been having this discourse with a couple people now of whose party is it? Like trying to look at everyone's birthdays and like trying to figure out the timeline we're currently in and like whose birthday could this be? Whose birthday could this be? And it turns out to be a celebration for Bakugo and Todoroki because of they got their license.
Does this mean we get a change up now because they got their license?
Does that ask you what it is?
No, that's because they had the party this episode, and that's the party that they've been building up for in the end credits. It wasn't a birthday party; it was a party.
Is that
for
why
Todoroki.
they did the end credits and then showed the thing afterward?
Oh,
yes,
that's big brain. Oh my god!
Because it wasn't the preview, and they did that part. Then they did a preview, so they could still consider it like part of the actual episode.
Yeah, that's what they.
Is that canon, or are you just making that up?
I'm serious. I'm serious.
I mean,
I have to go back and rewatch this now.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's headcanon, it's still really good headcanon. But it being after the credits does help with it a little bit, and I do like that either way. I think that's really good.
Because if you watch that's why they're out and about on the town is because they're picking up stuff for the party.
That's really cute. I like that. I like that a lot.
Because we don't see Bakugo or Todoroki in it at all. That would kind of that ruin it.
That kind of ruins it a little bit. You know what?
No, I don't think they're in it. I don't think they're in it. I'm trying to think of like.
I don't know. We'll have to go back.
I know Bakugo for sure isn't in it because I don't think he is, at least because the voice actor for Bakugo commented on it and he's like, oh, it's so sad he's not with his friends Kirishima and Denki.
We'll have to go back and look at it, but either way, it's really good headcanon, Dylan. That's a really good thing. And I guess kind of speaking of Todoroki and Bakugo, I mean, we had a really cool fight scene at the end. They both have the provisional license now. That's awesome. We kind of got a little bit of tease about this black market support items, seeing if that'll kind of play in, because they made it a very clear part of the episode, but there's kind of this entire scene, seeing them work together and kind of feel like heroes. and Bakugo still being very much himself even when doing hero work, telling someone to go commit suicide somewhere else. So
Yeah, like, whew, that was dark.
anything kind of from that whole fight scene there. Obviously, we usually don't dive too far into fight scenes, but that or the black market items, anything you guys found really interesting there?
I kind of want to know about like what the deal is with knockoff Crimson Chin. Like, I kind of want to know what's going on with him. This random dude who just shows up and starts talking to them, and surprisingly knows like a decent amount about them. Like, it was just like, usually you get like the crowd shouting up, but this guy like was like super excited about the tombs. I don't know.
I thought he was super excited about Bakugo. He called him like the crazy guy from TV or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So like, I don't know. He was like, he was a little sus, but like,
I mean, to be fair, Bakugo is the crazy guy from TV, though.
How?
he is the crazy guy. He was muzzled on TV.
I mean, like they compared it to like the likes of the Olympics. So obviously, if you see someone win the Olympics but chained up with a muzzle, you're going to remember that person for a while.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good. I'll give you that.
Like, that'd just be a meme. Like if that was a real life, there'd be so many memes that'd just be used over and over again about Bakugo, even though there's kind of memes from the actual show too. But this is their real life.
One thing I really did like is the little All Might moment that we got of him trying to save the woman. I don't know. I just really like that. Like it's
just a hero.
He's still a hero.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like that. That was a really good moment. I'm glad that they had that in this episode.
And he did actually save him, right? I think Bakugo kind of helped them not get injured a little bit, but either way, I think they would have been fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think All Might would have come out like a little banged up afterwards, right? Like we don't really know what like the state of his like his general physique is. He looks pretty decrepit, right? Like, so I don't know. But yeah, the man's out there still busting his ass. God love him.
I love that. He's just kind of a dad figure to everyone in Class 1A now. He's driving them around, telling them to be careful. Obviously, he's with Deku all the time. Like, he's just the dad of Class 1A. He's like, kind of like how some sororities have I don't even remember what it's called. Like, they have like I guess House Bunny is one thing I think of, but they usually have like a head person or something like that. I don't know where I'm going with this. He's just around all the time with Class 1A.
There is one. Speaking of like dad figures, and this kind of jogged my memory that it happened. There was a name drop between Aizawa and Present Mike that I like throughout the show. I've yet to see that name.
Oh yeah, I no clue who they were talking about there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like it was like
this little conversation, yeah. And then he's just like, "Is he run you?" And he the name gets out and he cuts him off immediately, right? And it seemed like it seemed like a somber kind of discussion because President Mike wasn't like losing his shit.
Is it maybe? Are we finally gonna talk about the class that he expelled? Is maybe that's a reference there?
I mean, it's probably got to come up soon because they didn't make a big enough deal about it where, like everyone's going to be speculating on it nonstop. Because there's only one kind of write-off comment that kind of instantly ended the conversation there. But also during the preview for next week, they're like, "But something dark and sinister is happening behind the scenes. It could have something to do with that, maybe. I don't know. Because I just feel like it wasn't a big enough moment where like, oh, this is a setup for like 8 episodes down the road, and make sure you remember this name. Like, it was such a short moment that it feels like it has to come soon, or it's not important, and we'll get into some random backstory down the road.
It's so weird for me, like with My Hero, because like it never feels like unless Horikoshi decides to deliberately forget it, it's never not deliberate. You know what I mean? Like it's never just put in there for like shits and giggles. You know what I mean? There's always purpose, right? So I think that, like, yeah, whether the degree of relevance it is, I'm not sure, but I'm sure there is some relevance to it, right?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, but that's definitely kind of one hanging thread from all of this.
I think the other one we kind of skipped over a little bit, but the black market support items, I think we might just get like a cool like new information about like the like maybe like underworld of like what's going on with villains and stuff like that too, which could be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's such a like an unanswered thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we know support gadgets are made for heroes. Like, what do villains do? Like, who do they go to? Like, I mean, we know about like the arms dealer who's working with like the League of Villains and stuff like that.
That's instantly who I thought about, right? It's like I assume it's probably going to be something like with him of where it's like he like I don't know, he's just like given stuff out now. Like maybe that's part of their plan of where they just like it reminds me of like the Vigilantes drug or whatever, like the drug in Vigilantes.
Mm-hmm.
Where they just like make the pop-up villains or whatnot. Maybe they're just like making these like villains in the way that they're just dropping support items all over the place for people to use.
There was two mentions of support items too, because on the TV where it hung on it for like 18 seconds, it felt like, was about a support agency coming in. And we have no idea what the next arc is at this point. So I agree, some kind of underground, maybe they're helping the good support agency going against trying to stop the black market kind of support items. I mean, something kind of like that could come into play. Because I agree that they called out two support item kind of conversations in the same episode, which felt weird.
Yeah,
absolutely. We really haven't got any mention of it outside of Hatsume up to this point.
Yeah,
so
it's deliberate until it's not. So like,
pretty much.
I'm gonna chalk that up to like, you know, there was a reason why it was there.
But with that, I think we move over to this week's Plus Ultra, which is going to probably be incredibly random to how you ever want to look at this. But the Plus Ultra Award is a weekly award that we do each and every week that decides which character went beyond win Plus Ultra, and all three of us get to pick our own character and decide who went Plus Ultra the most throughout the entire season when we tally it up at the end. James.
Oh shit.
You don't have one? We can go to someone else first.
Yeah, give it. Dylan's gonna
easy. It's an easy one. Like, okay, I come here every single week. I give the correct answer, and you two just like say random stuff that doesn't make sense. It's All Might. All Might is the one that went Plus Ultra this episode easily.
I'm
quirkless, frail. Could die like if the wind is too strong, and yet without hesitation jumped to save that woman. That's Plus Ultra. Easily Plus Ultra. No one else comes close this episode. Because it's not about the impact of what you do. It's the fact that you just move without your brain knowing that your feet are moving.
You know, I was this close to giving it to Monoma. If he hadn't, if he had actually, like, when Eerie started feeling sad and if he had tried to, like, perk her up or anything like that, it would have been to Monoma immediately, but he didn't. So I gotta go with Dylan, too. I gotta go with All Might. I can't not.
Todoroki
and Bakugo were doing their job, and All Might was doing his job, trying to do crowd control, and he has some dumbass just wandering out into the street, and, you know, yeah. Our boy's doing it all.
If Dylan didn't go on a speech about how he's always correct and just insulting you and me, James, I would probably be more on board with it. I'm sad that you gave into it, James. Clearly, you're weak. You're weak. You gave in to Dylan. There's one answer here and one answer only, and it's Eerie.
Yeah, it's Eerie. Yeah, shut up. Get him out of here.
He didn't do anything.
She's learning how to write and read and writing letters, which is adorable.
It's a thing normal kids do.
Shut up. Let me continue. She is working with the bad side of UA. She was willing to deal with Monoma and be trained by Monoma. Imagine how fucked up of a person would be if they got their personal training from Monoma. And you know what? Because she's such a good person, she was going to deal with it. That is Plus Ultra. None of us would want to be trained by him, but Eerie was willing to do it for the good of the people. Eerie deserves Plus Ultra.
I can't.
Down.
She learns to read and write. That just immediately
She's
wins
adorable.
Andrew over. Oh my god, dude. Get him out of here.
You're wrong. You're both wrong.
Get him out of here.
All right. That's all we got for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning into our quote-unquote 100th episode of the podcast, but also of the anime. We had so much talking through it. Next week, we will be back on Saturday to talk through the Christmas episode, whatever that's going to be titled, breaking down everything that happened there and hopefully getting more information on the next coming arc. But with that, that'll be all for this week's episode, and we'll see you back in class next week.